Hello everyone, this is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this newest episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone.
And joining us as our special guest this week, a returning guest and fan favourite, the chronicler of TTS and many other things besides, Oculus Imperia.
Just grab that old jalopy and write it on down to the Imperial Dungeon, because there's lore on the boil. Hi, thanks for having me back.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest, for a minute, I thought your mic just completely cuts out because there was such a delay.
Well, I hope not. It's still working for me.
We can hear you. It's all good.
I just hope there isn't any lag. But anyway, in the news this week, quite a bit actually, especially with stuff that came out today, because we were actually recording this on the Saturday for a rare change of pace as opposed to the Friday.
Yeah, which means we've got two different online previews to talk about in one show. So we've got a lot to get through, and well, I'm known for rambling, Rem's known for rambling, and we've got Oculus, who's also very good at rambling. This is going to be quite a long show, and I don't think anyone's going to mind in the slightest, apart from my voice box.
Excuse you. I am not known for rambling. I am known for tangents.
I mean, is there a difference on this show?
You're known for tangential rambling. Yeah, so what shall we start with, shall we? Considering we're doing 40k related stuff, we'll start with the stuff that came out today in the Black Library preview.
Yeah,
yes, please.
That's probably, well, you've got the three of the bigger, people sort of like this episode because it's like three different lore tubers on the same thing, and we're all like best known for our lore videos. So I think probably people come to this show and like, oh my god, there was a Black Library preview, and there's two massive lore people plus me on the same show at once. Okay, yeah, we're clicking for the Black Library thing. So you can either sort it out early or plug for watch time. Either or.
Fair enough. Right, so let's start from the top. The next Siege of Terror book has been revealed, Mortis, and it's by John French. So yeah, something about the Legio Mortis, so that's obviously a good thing, because Legio Mortis is awesome. I think we can all agree there.
Legio Mortis are the worst. I'm a Titanicus player, I'm a fierce loyalist, and Legio Mortis are the absolute worst. I stand by that, thank you.
Yeah.
They're the worst in the best possible way.
Yeah, that's fair. So
can we agree on that?
Yeah,
yes, we can absolutely agree on that.
So Legio Mortis, for those who don't know, are probably the most famous Traitor Titan Legion, period. They've been with the Traitors since, I think, Istvan 3, possibly Istvan 5. But they joined on with the Traitor Cause, or no, hang on, Schism of Mars, what am I on about? But they signed on with the Traitor Cause really, really early, and they're also the Legio with Dies Irae, the Imperator, the most famous Imperator Titan of them all.
And speaking of the Dies Irae, can we just talk about the cover art of that book, considering it looks like those Imperial Army soldiers are shouting, "Shoot it in the dick."
I mean,
exactly. I mean, what else are you going to do when the building starts walking?
But it's really cool to see like the effect of void shields. And there was a lot of people I saw this in the chat saying like affix bayonets. At that point, if you've got an Imperator that close, your best bet is actually just affix bayonets and run through the void shield and hope you get through the Skitarii in its toe, or whatever it happens to be. But
Sekitari, isn't it?
It'll be Sekitarii, you're right. But this is the first, I think, repeat author that we've had, because John French also wrote Solar War. So that's interesting. It's based around, where's it gone? The Mercury Wall and the Legio Ignatum, one of the other very, very famous Titan legions, as well as lost warriors and travelers making their way through wastelands and gardens of horror towards home and an unknown future.
Perpetuals.
Is that 9 spoilers?
I hope, anyway.
Oh no, hang on. Fury of Magnus spoilers.
Thank you. I haven't read that yet. No,
I already spoiled that one.
I'm super looking forward to it, not only as a Titanicus player, but as someone who just likes it when large robots fight each other. I am also excited because the Imperator Titan on the cover seems to have gotten a little bit of a slight redesign that gives me as a Titanicus player hopes that there's going to be a plastic model at some point in the near future. Because Titan Death dropped around about the same time as Titanicus. The game dropped, and I live in eternal hope of new little Titans for me to paint.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see, I suppose.
So, moving quickly away from Siege of Terror, the next book in the Dark Imperium trilogy has been teased as well, Godblight.
Yes.
Now,
sorry.
Now, just to quickly steer away from this back to the other two Dark Imperium books, because this is actually touched upon later on, Dark Imperium and Plague War are going to be re-released, but there's actually going to be a few changes to the books themselves, as in details in the actual story, to make it fit with the Dawn of Fire series.
Yeah, so in essence, Dark Imperium and Plague War took place at the end of the Indomitus Crusade, according to the old version. The retconned version, as even Guy Haley used the word retcon, will take place at the end of Phase 1 of the Indomitus Crusade. So instead of being 100 years after the Indomitus Crusade was launched, it's only like a dozen or so after the Indomitus Crusade. So it more allows the characters, say, in Belisarius Call the Great Work, in Dawn of Fire, and all these other Era Indomitus novels, as they're called, to be able to play off each other a little bit more, rather than having Dark Imperium be so far off in the future and everything has to tie back to it. Which kind of implies that GW hadn't sorted out the canon of the Indomitus Crusade when Guy Haley wrote Dark Imperium, but, well, whatever.
I think it's less of an instance of them not sorting out the canon ahead of time, in more that I think a bit of a retroactive realization that the Era Indomitus presents a ton of potential, both narratively speaking and for gamers as well. So it is a retcon. It absolutely is. There's no getting around that. But
they flat out state it's a retcon, so
yeah. But it's a good one as far as I'm concerned. It's one that I'm just like, yeah, you know what, this makes perfect sense for this, for every aspect of Warhammer, lore and hobbying, gaming, what have you.
Yeah, I think so. But they've not just, rewrote them slightly and then released them as they used to look. They've actually jazzed up the covers of both of them to have more of a cohesive...
The covers do look really nice.
They do.
I must admit, they look really gorgeous.
Yeah, they're excellent covers.
We don't have the cover for Godblight yet, but they do describe what's happening in that book. So it's the battle on Ajax, or Eax, depending on which you prefer, which is the sort of end of the Plague Wars. And the Godblight is a Primark killing super weapon, super disease that Nurgle has created almost in his cauldron. So we know Guilliman's going to live because they've retconned it to be in the middle of the Indomitus Crusade, not the end of it. And we know how this story ends anyway. But it's nice to see that, it isn't just, oh, they're going to have a punch-up. There is actually some stakes, even if we know the end result.
I also just noticed in regards to the cover art, I know it's Dark Imperium, it's featuring Firstborn Marines, and Plague War has the Primaris.
Yeah, I can't tell if that is a Victrix Guard or an Honor Guard from here, because I don't really know. It looks like a Victrix Guard to me. The Honor Guard to Guilliman's, our view of Guilliman's left. And I think that's Carter. Is that Carter Sicarius?
On the right, it looks like it. It's definitely got the head crest.
Yeah, it's definitely got the headdress for it. But that is an interesting spot, and we'll be getting on to more Primaris Marines later. Yes, more Primaris Marines. But that is actually a really interesting spot. I hadn't actually noticed that. That's really cool.
It's cool that the combined Firstborn Primaris art is a little bit more prominent, at least just to, assure people like us who are fans of the Firstborn and everything that they've actually accomplished, that they're going to be around for a little bit longer.
Definitely.
I'd agree with that. And speaking of old Marines and Primaris, let's have a chat about Uriel Ventress, who is back again.
Yes. Because last we saw of him was in that short story, The Death of Uriel Ventress.
Where actually Graham McNeil described him undergoing the Rubicon Primaris, but couldn't say that. The interview with Graham McNeil, he basically says, yeah, he was having the Rubicon Primaris surgery done on him, but I couldn't say that because Calgar hadn't come out yet. Which is, when you think about it back, it's like, okay, that's a cool touch. Well done, Graham McNeil.
Nice to get in a bit ahead of schedule.
Yes. And he's also getting a model.
Yeah, so the book's called The Swords of Calth, in case you're looking for it, and they've basically taken the cover art and tried to one-to-one it into miniature form. and they succeeded 97% of the way, and then something went wrong with the face.
And the hair.
It's only the hairline that, like, I'm a little bit iffy about. He looks like a lad I would see on O'Connell Street in Dublin. There's a bit of that going on too.
Also, has he got like a gigantic rose on his pauldron?
Yes, it's the rose of the white rose of Pavanis that he got in Nightbringer. Way back when.
Because I haven't read that book, so okay.
But it's interesting, and I saw a tweet by Scarlett about this. Sort of like the problem with some people had with Primaris is that they were all really homogenous. But this, I'll be completely honest with you. At first, guys, I looked at this one and thought, "Is he a Primaris?" I had to look at it for about 3 seconds before I actually clicked. Okay, yeah, that is a Primaris, because it's got so much character.
And you notice with the back of the head as well, it looks like he's just got a bowl cut.
Yeah, the haircut is. I mean, but that being said, are we really going to expect a lot of fashion-forward hairstyles from the Adeptus Astartes anytime soon?
I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting a bowl cut.
To be fair, it's a Space Marine. The fact we've got hair at all is a surprise.
The bowl cut is an incredibly efficient haircut. You know, Cato Sicarius will just pick up the bowl, place it on any of his captains' heads, and just cut around, and then they'll be ready to fight Necrons or whatever.
But the thing is, like, with Cat Sicarius, you know, he styles his hair and facial hair in a way to make him look like, Riker from Star Trek.
It's my headcanon that Cat Sicarius has, like, a full-on Salvador Dali-esque mustache underneath his head. Helmet, sorry.
Fair enough.
I mean, what's his facial hair in Knights of Macra? Because we have seen Cat Sicarius without his hat on in Knights of Macra.
A big mustache.
Yeah, I think it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. For Knights of Macra.
Big bushy mustache. Basically, Tom Selleck mustache.
Glorious.
Indeed. And speaking of old things returning, Dan Abnett was next up with the next book in the Beckwind series, which, for those who don't know, is the follow-up to Ravener, which is the follow-up to Eisenhorn. So it's part of the long-running Inquisitor trilogy of trilogies at this point that Dan Abnett has been writing. So this is book 2, Penitent, and a re-release of book 1, Pariah.
Literally how many years has it been since... Pariah came out?
I don't even remember it coming out.
At least a decade.
It's been at least a decade. It has to be at this point. It was really starting to feel for the longest time, and I know that poor Dan had like health issues, and I'm very much happy he's better.
Pariah came out in 2012.
8 years.
Yep, there we go.
Well, 9
8
by
years.
the time that it comes back out.
It really did feel for the longest time like this was just like vaporware, like the Duke Nukem Forever of books. And I'm really, really happy to see that it's coming out.
I'd say that limited edition for Penitent looks absolutely gorgeous, though. Like a nice big tarot card.
It's so nice.
And then Nick Kime got a segment where he just dropped like 7 books in a row.
Yeah.
So let's go through them. Alfarius, Head of the Hydra by Mike Brooks.
Yes. I am so happy.
The supposed origin story, and I say supposed because it's the Alpha Legion, can you really trust them?
Yeah, and I mean the back cover makes it explicitly clear where does the deception end and the truth begin. So
it is going to be an interesting exercise for Mike Brooks to provide anything. Like the Alpha Legion are at the point now where you need to be able to walk that fine line between saying something definitive enough to have a good plot and a good story and not being definitive enough that you don't ruin the Alpha Legion.
All at the same time without falling into the meme trap.
The meme trap is also a thing, yes. That is a very,
very present danger. One thing I do really like about it, though, is that if you look at the limited editions, because they're all numbered, the limited editions of the Primark novels, all the numbers on this one are going to be XXXX, so you aren't going to know.
No. And all the previews for limited editions, they all show that.
Oh, sorry. I just assumed that was an Alpha Legion thing. Sorry.
No,
ignore me.
No, that's just a basic, a dummy thing. Like, when you got a picture of a credit card on screen, all the numbers are X, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. I'm just being an idiot then. Fine, ignore me. Carry on.
We've also got the next book in the Dawn of Fire series called Gate of Bones.
Yep, so this is by Andy Clark, and it takes place on Gathalamor, where we've got no Guilliman, but we have a nice mix of Sisters, Custodes, Mordian Iron Guard, and Astartes. So it's all around, as I say, Gathalamor, which is a world that I know the name of and cannot remember why I know the name of it.
I think we can all agree, though, that any more focus on the Mordianian Guard is always a good thing. Because they're a vastly underappreciated Guard regiment, let's be honest.
They are old venerables, and you're right, they have not been much of anything for the longest time. So I am with you there.
And also, a new background book is coming out, which is making me and you, Oculus, hope that Darius Hinks is a fan of Simon Spurrier. Liber Xenologis, which is quote-unquote the galaxy's first truly comprehensive work of xenology, to which the book Xenology says, am I a joke to you?
But the Liber Xenologis is from the perspective of Janus Drake, the rogue trader in the Blackstone Fortress games. So it's an interesting way of, instead of it being like an Imperial scholar, like in Xenology, for example, where, as I recall, it is an Imperial scholar writing about all the horrors of the galaxy and diddly-diddly-dee. Whereas a rogue trader is not under the thumb of Imperial bureaucracy the same way that the author of Xenology probably was.
Are you saying there's something wrong with characters being under the thumb of Imperial bureaucracy?
Say that question again and then realize exactly what you just said and realize what the answer to that question is.
This one, other than I think Pariah is, Pariah? God,
Penitent.
I've already forgotten. Penitent, thank you. This one, other than Penitent, is probably the most excited I've gotten about the announcements from this morning, mostly because I could not be more of a fan of those old mid-2000s Black Library source books, especially Xenology. It remains one of my favorite things the Black Library have ever published, and I'm really hoping that they can kind of recapture the spirit of weirdness that
I hope
embodied.
they put in the dissection diagrams as well.
Oh my god, please. I want so much art to be packed into this thing that we haven't seen before.
But I do like as well, they've called it the Liber Xenologis, as in tying it into like the Liber Chaotica and keeping that consistency of like terminology.
That I do like, yeah. I do like that.
Because it was odd that it's like you've got all these different books about the Imperium, and then you've got the Liber Chaotica, the Book of Chaos, and then Xenology. Not the... It's just...
I think, in fairness, is because when Liber Chaotica first came out, it was not just a Void Cave thing, because it was fantasy as well. So I think it's just tying more into that. Because obviously it was being told from the perspective of, like, of a Sigmarite priest. So
Yes, very true. We'll stick in the 41st millennium for a second and jump down to, oh my god, a Ghazghkull novel told from the perspective of Bakari the Grot. What?
This is what I'm most excited for, because, like, finally we're getting a Ghazghkull novel.
So this is by Nate Crowley, and it is the account of Lord Inquisitor Titanida Falx, who has come into possession of Makari the Grot, and thus is able to provide a more comprehensive account of Ghazghkull's life and so on and so forth.
Now, for those of you who don't know who Nate Crowley's work is, or are familiar with his work or not, he did that Necron novella Severed, and he also did that orc short story Enemy of My Enemy, the one that features the orc general playing with a tank on a little, table, going chugga chugga chugga, and Imperial Guards saying, "Put that back, please." Okay.
Severed was one of the most beautiful little delights of a book that was like a very personal tale on behalf of Nate Crowley at the same time as it was a wonderful bit of Necron characterization. So the fact that he's getting a full novel and the fact that it's on the subject matter that it's on is a delight. I can't wait for this.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see how much of the story is a retelling of the story we know, i.e. because Ghazghkull's life up to Armageddon 3 is pretty well chronicled, and Ghazghkull's life from Armageddon 3 to the Great Rift is relatively chronicled as well, thanks to the War Ghazghkull supplement. He flees Armageddon, there's the battle in the void, teleported away, lands near Octarius, gets involved in the Octarius War, then suddenly, now we're fighting Space Wolves. I know there's more to it than that, but it'll be interesting which part of the story they focus on, or whether it's just a cliff notes. Here's Ghazghkull's story in shorthand.
Well, it seems to be implying it's like his origin story more than anything else, considering it's like, where is it? How did his ascendancy come to be? Many have lost their minds trying to unravel the mystery. So it seems like they're going to try and go from his, origins as a lowly orc boy, and then to him leading his tribe, and then, the whole prophecy's like, I've been chosen by Gork and Mork to lead this big war, now the sun's dying, come on you gits, let's go fight, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that part of the story, we know a version of it was shot in head, found by Grotznik, super wicked surgery, super weird visions, done. But it will be interesting to see, and also, if that is the case, Makari was already the oldest Grot on record, who, obviously this was retconned away, got to the age of 8 before being sat on and fed to a Squiggoth. That was obviously retconned because he's alive now. But how old would that make Makari if he's seen the rise of Gazkul?
Assuming that it's the same Makari.
But then how would the new Makari know what the old Makari saw? Because Orc storytelling is unreliable narrator at best.
Warfield bullshit, genetic memory, I don't know. It'll probably come up with something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Orc storytelling is unreliable at best.
Either that or the Orcs have Animus technology and they're just basically Assassin's Creed Makari. So back then, I used to be called Skarsnik.
So they got You're saying that they have Animorph technology.
Yes.
I'll see myself out. Thank you very much. No, it's like that storytelling concept where the squire relates the tale of the knight in its own little weird way, which is kind of it's a beautiful little format. So I love that.
Definitely. And the final 40k story is the Book of Martyrs, which is 3 short stories tied into one overarching plot by Danny Ware, Alec Worley, and Phil Kelly. GW have done this before with Daughters of Cain. I still don't have that book, but I know they've done this sort of idea of 3 stories, but actually 1 before. But it's a sister's book this time.
From 3 different orders, it looks like, as well.
I mean, the Daughters of Cain one was as well. So that's nothing new. It's new for 40k, but it's nothing new for Black Library.
We love an anthology.
I'm going to take a wild guess and guess that Danny Ware's going to be writing about the Bloody Rose story. Because that's kind of a thing.
As well, she should.
Definitely.
So we've got a sister of the Order's Hospitaller, one of the Order of the Armated Lady, trying to teach the Tau about faith. That will be a thing.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I think I will as well. Even putting my Tau biases aside, that's a really interesting conversation to have between sort of the faith in science conversation and the devout, pick your terminology really. It'll be an interesting conversation to see play out. Obviously, the sister will win because the books have to be tied together, which is arguably not the argument that is true in modern society. But I'm getting too political. Move on.
Also, the bit about the Order of the Bloody Rose reinforcing Beleaguered defenders against a familiar foe turned anew by the Great Rift.
Interesting.
Indeed.
More Chaos Orcs, please. I mean, considering that Danny actually put Cornate Orcs in her first Bloody Rose novella, it's not unreasonable to assume that she might put some more Chaos Orcs in.
Let's hope for Chaos Kroot. I'm still waiting for them to come back.
That would be cool. Moving from 40k to AOS, there was only 2 books revealed. One was Git Slayer, the next Gotrek book, once again by Darius Hinks, who has actually kept the mantle from Ghoul Slayer, and it is all to do with Gotrek trying to get rid of his Super Saiyan Fire Slayer rune, whilst also probably going right into the heart of Skragrot the Loon King's insane asylum of mushroom adult predictor lunatics. That will be interesting.
I do like that it says, Gotrek Gurnson's been a busy dwarf, don't call him a dwarden, he doesn't like it.
Oh no, he wouldn't.
I do like that Gotrek is essentially embodying everyone who's still bitter about the old world being blown up. At least they can, project themselves onto everyone's favorite dwarf.
Absolutely. And then
he'll just go and hang out with Thanquol and it's like, oh, do you miss the old wars? Oh, I do. Yeah, those were the days, weren't they? Where we beat the shit out of each other. Yeah, they were the days.
Oh,
we got old.
I don't like this. I don't like it.
And the other AOS novel is another debutante, I think. Richard Strachan with The End of Enlightenment, Lumineth versus the Ossiarch Bone Reapers / the Forces of Death in general. I read the Realm Lords novel by Dale Lucas. It was amazing. So I have really, really high hopes for End of Enlightenment. I think it's going to be awesome.
Oh, sweet. I haven't yet picked up the Realm Lords one, but I'm trying to push myself to read a bit more AOS when I get the chance.
I'd say the cover art for this reminds me of a Stratovarius album.
Well said.
Have you seen the album cover for the album Elements Part 1? It reminds me of that. I wonder how many people are actually going to get that reference.
You've got a solid bet that you're going to get some people in the comments sounding off about that particular album.
It was a good album, though, in fairness. So.
It was a good album. I really liked it.
It was a good album.
So that was the Black Library preview, but a couple of weeks ago there was another one, the Decadence and Decay preview, which we did talk about on the previous show in terms of predicting it, and, well, this is another episode of Tactic as an Idiot, because I definitely said, oh, it's not Sigvald. It turned out to be Sigvald. Basically, whatever I say is going to happen on a preview, the opposite will happen. It's sort of becoming the way of things.
Yeah, I'm sorry. As soon as that little preview image cropped up, I'm just like, oh wow, they're bringing back Sigvald, and I was totally right, and I'm really happy about that. It was just
it was just a preview of the guy's his hip and his leg. It's like, I recognize those haunches anywhere.
I recognize the fact that there's literally only one person in existence brave enough to wear chap armor, and I am really happy that he's back.
Yeah, so this is, for those who don't know, Sigvald the Magnificent, a former Warriors of Chaos Lord for Slaanesh from Fantasy, now reborn as, well, we think a demon prince. We're not really 100% sure what he is yet. I think he's not a demon prince, but he's got the demonic horns, so it's not entirely clear.
And he's bigger now, it looks like.
But obviously within 10 minutes there was the, let's stick the torso of Sigvald on the lower body of Morathi. Hey, it's Demon Fulgrim.
And a good call that is too. Although the model's so gorgeous it kind of stands on its own.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. Oh, sorry, go on.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
I was like, as an Elven player, I should hate this, but this model and the Slaanesh Mortals they revealed with it, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I'm an Elves player, but I want a Slaanesh army, and everyone's like, no, Tacticus can be corrupted to a Slaanesh at this point. But I can't deny the model is, and the Keeper of Secrets model as well, I remember when that came out. The Slaanesh range, with the possible exception of Demonettes, is amazing. It's really good.
It's excellent.
And now I've got Shadow and Pain sat here, because I wanted the Melisai Iron Scale and stuff for my daughters, and I'm like, now I actually have the stuff I need to start a Slaanesh army. Bother.
Oh no, that is an unfortunate conundrum to find yourself in, and I only hope that you are able to make the right choice and eventually just go with Slaanesh.
I mean, you're not getting rid of my Morathi, my tech lists, and everything else. I'm still having the giant pile. I've managed to accumulate 3 piles of shame in the space of a month, because I got Shadow and Pain. I got Drusa Kraith from Broken Realms, so I've got that army box as well for Darkling Covens. And then before lockdown, the first lockdown back in March, my friend arranged to send me some Idoneth Deepkin as well, the old Battle Force, the Deep Surge Raiding Party, and that arrived today. So now I've got 3 separate Elven armies in my pile of shame that I need to get on with, and I've got no time to do them in, and it's like, oh no, I've committed the cardinal sin. I've bought models before I'd finished the previous ones.
You mean the cardinal sin? You mean every Warhammer player ever? I like the way that you differentiated between 3 different piles of shame as opposed to one gigantic one.
Rationalizing the problem makes it easier to solve. But Sigvald didn't come back alone. Sigvald was accompanied by the Myrmidesh Painbringers, which are sort of super Slaaneshi swordsmen with, again, a really nice Greek aesthetic, or this pseudo-Greek, as well as the Simbaresh Twin Souls, which are essentially like Slaanesh possessed, because they share their bodies with lesser demons. And not so keen on them, much prefer the Painbringers in terms of the Mortal Slaanesh stuff that we are getting.
It's never going to be an easy thing to make mortal, like half mortal or possessed models look like not weird because they're supposed to be weird.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, I do prefer the Myrmidesh, but they're still excellent. The amount of love Slaanesh is getting in terms of its upcoming mortal range is just wonderful to see.
And it's been really clever of GW to sort of rebrand Slaanesh, because Slaanesh has always been the god of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But they've managed to rebrand Slaanesh to still be about excess, but in a much more tasteful way, with all the demon and mortal miniatures that they've released over the last couple of years. It's been a really subtle but really effective rebrand to make Slaanesh more accessible to younger audiences.
I'm certainly happy to see that it's happening in that way, as opposed to just squat Slaanesh. Like the initial AOS drive to be like, Slaanesh doesn't exist anymore. He's trapped away and has no impact on anything, so we're not going to give them anything at all. So the fact that we're now at the point where a good rebrand is happening is it's great. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because you can't have a giant pile of elves without Slaanesh screwing everything up. But the preview did not entirely revolve around the return of Sigvald, because 40k received Warzone Caradon, or Charadon, or whichever you prefer, which is a new sort of war book, Warzone, like the Pariah Nexus stuff, I guess, with new rules for the Death Guard, Mechanicus, Imperial Knights, and Drakari, which was then followed up by the announcement of the Drakari Codex, and the official confirmation of the Dark Angels Codex as well.
And speaking of codices, the Death Guard Codex has been pushed back until next year.
Yeah, where GW said there's sort of been a delay somewhere in the chain, and so the Death Guard release has been delayed, and it will come out in the new year at some point. What knock-on effect that will have on anything else, we don't know, or whether they'll just sneak it in alongside, say, the Dark Angels, remains to be seen.
I mean, I'm sure that they would ideally like that every new codex update will receive its own update weekend, but considering the fact that, we're getting a piece of terrain and a hero model, it's not, it can be pushed out alongside another release. We're not seeing a massive overhaul of the miniature range. We're not seeing a, huge dump of new kits. So I hope that, the release schedule won't be impacted too much, but, well, we'll see.
I will say this, though, because then they released a new wallpaper for the Death Guard. It's basically like a small sorry kind of thing, or apology. Did anyone else notice that the Blight Crawler on that looks like it's got new weapon options?
I haven't really looked, to be completely honest. Let's go and have a look-see.
So it looks like we might be getting, a new kit.
I didn't notice that so much. I noticed the fact that the Blight Crawler had a face.
That's to be expected now, isn't it, to be honest?
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't say I know Death Guard well enough to know what their weapons look like off the top of my head. But they also showed off, gave us the Mortarion datasheet as well. So the Lantern is now Strength 8, AP -3, Damage 3, and is a beam weapon. Silence has 2 melee modes, where one of them is going to be Strength 16, AP -4, Damage D3 +3 with 7 attacks. And the other one is going to be Strength 8, AP -2, Damage 1 with 21 attacks.
Good lord.
Good lord indeed.
He has a Primark. Woo.
Yeah.
Woo.
They also mentioned this thing called the Contagions of Nurgle, which seems to be a new, army-wide faction ability. We don't know what that is yet. But it says, this counts the battle round number as being 4 for the purposes of determining the contagion range. Oh god, are they all just going to have aura abilities of nonsense?
It sounds like it.
Oh no, why have they... No. Why would you give an army that resilient aura effects of nonsense across the board and disgustingly... Oh god.
So that they can be more resilient.
For the lols, obviously.
It's lore friendly.
I suppose, but we are where we are with that. And probably more on Rem's avenue, we got the first look at Van Saar for Necromunda.
Did we? I must have missed that one.
Yes, we did.
Oh yeah, they got those cool looking hoverboards, haven't they?
Yeah, so you've got the Neotechs, which are skyboarders with seeming like hollow shields, if for want of a better word. And then you've got the Archaeotechs, who've got like the spider armor. Damn it, the preview stream's playing in my ears. Go away. Go away, preview stream. Stop playing in my ears. There we go. Gone. But yeah, so 2 new units for Van Saar have been confirmed. The Archaeotechs and the Neotechs, sort of at both ends of the technology tree. And they do look really cool, though I can't help but thinking that the Neotech skyboards kind of look like half a Necron tomb spider.
I'm trying to find the actual article that had the pictures and I can't bloody find it.
Hang on. I'll give them to you now. There.
I'm going to be honest. Van Saar, as cool as their designs are, they've never gelled with me as part of... I mean, it's probably because their designs are so completely different to how 40k tends to operate that they clash. But for me, they just...
It's pretty much the point, because they're meant to have like an STC that has like stuff from the Dark Age of technology in their possession, so that's why they got such...
Oh yeah, no, I fully understand that it's... I fully understand that it's the point of it. It is just one of those things that is kind of like, I'm unfortunately just not a fan of it.
Fair
but
enough.
That's just me.
Yeah.
How about you, though? What do you think of the specific look for these skyboards?
Honestly, I think they look pretty cool. Do you know what they remind me of as well? I'm getting some pretty cool Green Goblin vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, they kind of remind me like if you took a Necron Canoptech spider and sliced it in half, like long ways. It's kind of what it made me think of at first look, but certainly...
What you need to do is get one of those models and do a head swap with a Gloomspite Git. That's what you got to do. There you go, bam, Green Goblin.
There's a challenge for anyone out there in the comment section.
Yeah, you're going to have to find a pretty big goblin to make that one stick.
No, he's just have a tiny, tiny head.
Man. Just use one of the older sculpts from like back from 5th edition Fantasy or something.
Skarsnik, maybe.
There you go. But good luck getting the head off that model.
Good point. Speaking of old models and stuff, there's a new Treebeard for Middle-earth, which is a thing, I suppose.
So for both of you players who play Middle-earth, you'll be happy about that.
Wow, Dis. It has a small but dedicated fan base, okay?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just like neither of it. I tried playing Lord of the Rings like a decade ago, and it didn't stick with me at all. So I just have never found a reason to care, because I'm not that invested in the Lord of the Rings in general, and the miniatures game didn't grab me at all. So I don't know. It's just.
But at least we've got Gimli sitting on top of a corpse while smoking a pipe.
Quite so.
I just love that it's still being supported. That part will never not kind of low key surprise me.
I remember when the Lord of the Rings game first came out, and you could get it in places like WH Smith's and stuff like that.
Oh, it was a huge thing for Games Workshop back in the day. Huge.
And then finally, Warhammer Underworlds received another warband, that being the Slaves to Darkness warband, Kagras Ravagers, with not twin sisters, but 2 sisters leading the warband, one with a ginormous skull mace, and the other being a super mutated witch, as you do. And I believe we saw somewhere else, it wasn't in this preview, but somewhere else in the last couple of weeks, we got to see another of the Seraphon warband. One of the, I can't remember what it was now, but it was another, there was a skink priest type thing in another article from the Starblood Stalkers, which is like a skink priest with some technology sphere in their hand.
I just want to say, because Diachasm got released today, or available for pre-order today.
Yes.
They're releasing a t-shirt to coincide with it, and while the artwork looks good, does that t-shirt look very fucking cheap? Like, it just looks like someone just took a big glossy print and just slapped it on.
I mean, isn't that how most merchandise is made?
No, well, I mean, like, there's no, like, attempt to, like, blend it in with a t-shirt. It just looks like a big square. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I totally get it.
Fair point.
It just looks very cheap. Maybe it's just me. It just looks like one of those knockoff T-shirts you get outside like a venue when you go into a wrestling event or something.
I mean, you're saying that like it's not, but it almost certainly is that.
Having not been to one, I can't really say.
Shame. Oh, speaking of shame, this ties back into the books briefly. It hasn't been announced on GW because it was actually from Gavthorpe's Twitter. But one thing we did find out is that there's not going to be a third Nari novel.
Aww.
Apparently, Wild Rider didn't sell enough for Black Library to justify commissioning Gav for a third book in the series.
Huh. I mean,
This is one of those things that I will fully and always point to when I see internet threads of people complaining that Xenos are not supported enough. It's like, here you go.
If you want Xenos books, buy them.
Like Xenos fans, you got to put your money where your mouth is with this particular case because this is the best example, right? Like, this book was good. This book was dealing with every subject that you wanted it to deal with. Talk about it, buy it, tell your friends.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we had ADB on, and he said, like, the main reason he doesn't write Xenos fiction is because, for him, it's not worth it financially because of how slowly he writes. He won't make enough money back from the time he spends writing it. A sad thing in a way. Not sad because, him being bad, he's not a bad writer at all. I think we can all agree he's one of the better writers in the business.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is that Xenos books sell so little that some authors will not touch them because it's not worth it financially.
Yeah,
it's sad in a way.
It is. In the case of Wild Rider and the Yanari series, the only thing I remember about that series is that it went super duper wild not tying to the title puns, but in terms of like the whole, Necrontyr and Eldari fighting together against Slaanesh before Slaanesh was even a thing and before the Necrons were even a thing. And it went so far off the rails. That's not an indictment of the book by any stretch of the imagination. It's not supposed to be. But I think that one of the other challenges with Xenos literature is, A, the audience being there, but also the Xenos audience that is there is divided. Because I'm not interested in an Eldari novel, particularly. Like, if it's on and around, I might pick it up for a read, but I'm not going to go out of my way to buy an Eldari novel. A Tau novel or an Orc novel, I'll move heaven and earth to get my hands on a Tau or an Orc novel. But because the Xenos player base has its own particular factions that they support and others that they don't, it means that unlike, say, the Imperial audience, which is big enough that it doesn't matter, or the Chaos audience that is big enough and generally unified enough that it doesn't really matter, it's making it even harder to get good Xenos literature out there. But when they do sell it, like The Infinite and the Divine, they did a shorter run, and it was amazing. We know orcs sell because they keep commissioning orc literature, such as the Gazgul book we discussed earlier.
You say keep commissioning when like the Gazgul book is going to be like the second orc novel.
Third.
And even in the first orc... What was the...
There was the two Mike Brooks novels. That's technically two.
What other orc novel did Mike Brooks do? Because he did Brutal Cunning. What was the other orc novel?
I thought there was a follow-up to that.
No.
Or was it an audio drama, Prophets of the War?
Prophets of the War was an audio drama, not a novel. And that was Guy Haley. Oh,
God, right. Sorry. I thought there was a...
And even then with Brutal Cunning, when the orcs are only the focus for about, just over a third of the book anyway. The rest of the book is tied, focusing on the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Iron Warriors.
True. Okay, fine. I'll stop talking now.
Oh, no, don't.
They still got more POV novels than the Nids, though, so...
As I said, it's very much like... The Infinite and the Divine is an excellent book that is... as you said, had a bit of a smaller print run and is selling very well. And a lot of that is on, I think, word of mouth, right?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it like crazy. I hyped the thing into crazy when I bought it on the podcast. I spent like 30 minutes dissecting it on the show. Well, not that long, but at least 10.
And that is that's what is needed. If you love Xenos stuff, it does kind of behoove you to get online and just start trying to get everyone who loves Warhammer to buy it, man. Like, Get people involved. Word of mouth sells books like you would not believe these days.
But the problem is with
basically
people
how
like...
it's supposed to exist.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The problem is that with things like this show is if we do a review, particularly this is true of like the limited edition stuff like the Siege of Terror books. If we do a review where we break down the plot and the key themes and the ending in particular, or some of the big reveals, we've bought the book and read it, which means that the 100 or so listeners who might have thought about buying it might now think, and it works both ways. They might think, oh my god, I want to know more, and go and buy it. But someone go, okay, I've learned the important bits. There was nothing there, or there was something there that was interesting enough that I wanted to hear about it, but I don't want to hear the whole book. I'm not going to buy it because I don't need the Cliff Notes spoilers. It's a double-edged sword sometimes with how much promo you do and how you do it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's obviously a difference between promo and spoilers. But a book as an experience is supposed to be something just beyond the simple details of the plot. At least that's how I always see about it. So
True.
I do understand your point, though.
Right. Let's see.
So yeah, long story short, if you want more Xenos books, just buy them. That's the only way you're going to get more, but you have to buy them, otherwise you won't get any more.
Precisely.
So yeah,
in terms of what else has there been? Right. So Q1 next year. So I'm just because we were talking about Bansar and Necromunda before we got a bit before we went off on that tangent. So Q1 seems to be for Necromunda that there's going to be no house. That will be Vansar and some other miscellaneous reinforcements. Cawdor will be in Q2. Delac will be in Q3, and then something redacted will be in Q4 of 2021.
I'm guessing the redacted one will basically be like kind of like, the old Outlanders expansion. So basically things like, the Scavies and the Ratskin Renegades and stuff like that.
Yeah. My hope for the redacted is that it's finally going to be the guilds. After those models that got previewed ages ago, I just finally want to see them.
Could be. But even though the other books have been adding stuff about the guilds in each book, though, so kind of being spread over the other books, so...
Guilds or
I'm going to say it's going to be the Scavies or the Ratskins.
I say guilds and spirers. Spirers.
Well, it could be spirers, actually.
I just don't know Necromunda well enough, so I'm just going to leave it.
Fair enough.
Beyond that, we also got a look at another Slaanesh miniature for Warcry, the Shard Speaker of Slaanesh. Which, as Kirioth and others rightly pointed out on Twitter, is basically just Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers.
Absolutely what I would want to convert that model into.
But either way, it is a very, very good miniature, regardless of reference or lack thereof. It is a very nice miniature, the Shard Speaker, as we mentioned earlier with the overall Slaanesh range. Bit of a PSA for shipping. By the time this video comes out, it will be the 9th of December. So depending on where you are in the world, some Christmas shipping from GW may already be over. If you're listening to this in Australia, France, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, actually most of the EU plus Australia, then your shipping deadline is tomorrow, the 10th. If you're in New Zealand, it's the 11th. If you're in Ireland or Northern Ireland, it's the 12th. And for Great Britain, aka England, Scotland, and Wales, then that will be on the 13th. So it's less than a week from day of publishing until Christmas orders end.
Better get those orders in if you want something to do over the holidays.
I don't have that problem, but yes, agreed.
I was going to say, if you want to get something new to add to the pile of shame that you, like apparently myself and Tactica both have, get those orders in.
Yeah, so one of the things you won't be able to get, though, possibly there's a couple still available, is the Christmas Battle Forces. Most of these have gone now and fully sold out. But there were 4 AOS Battle Forces for Ogres, Gloomspite, Caradron, and Tzeentch. And for 40k, there was a Vanguard Marines, there was Necrons, there was Astra Militarum, Chaos Space Marines, Tau, which was incredibly good value, and Tyranids as well.
Yeah, good luck getting your hands on any of those now.
Yeah, I think the Tzeentch one was still available, the day after, but I get the feeling they're all gone by now.
I mean, when I looked at the pre-orders this morning, pretty much every single one was sold out, including the Zinch one. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. The pre-orders this week, by the way, was Diachasm, as we mentioned earlier, and also the warbands for Warcry from the Catacombs box. So Scions of the Flame and the Keynote Shadowstalkers are also on pre-order. I may or may not get some Shadowstalkers because I still need to pick up my Dante novel, which wasn't in store today, unfortunately. My Gazcool was, but my Dante novel was not, unfortunately.
F.
Don't worry, I'm still waiting for the Astaroth novel to be dispatched. So
Oh, you managed to secure that, did you? Because it wasn't out for long.
Again, what you got to do, you got to get the link from New Zealand
Yeah.
because they get 8 hours in advance.
Yeah, and have agents.
No, only for things when you have to actually go to like an actual like Black Library seminar thing. I don't know what you call them. Fuck it, I lost my train of thought. Anyway.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
For the
I really do want to get my hands on Diachasm, but I also have Shadespire and I have Shadespire and Nightvault, and I don't know if I need a third one.
Just get them anyway.
But that Lumineth warband is really cool. And
I mean, I don't
just get it.
I don't play Underworld, but I do own Morgwaith's Blade Covenant. I've actually painted my Morgwaith. So the only thing I've painted in the last few weeks is my Morgwaith. I just generally wait because they're all applicable to the AOS armies, so I always end up just waiting for them to come out individually and then buy them individually because I agree that Lumineth warband is amazing.
I do play Underworlds, and I find it a really approachable and fun game to play, and to be perfectly honest, something that's pretty ideal for a Canadian winter spent in lockdown with the same tiny group of people that formed like my little COVID bubble.
Oh, you have a bubble, that's nice.
Yeah, I know. You've no idea how much of a relief it's been to have some people to be able to count on during this whole thing. So I'm thinking Diachasm might be a good way to just backdoor people into a nice little skirmish game and give me a variety of models to paint as well. That's the one thing I'm finding during like pandemic lockdown is that like the idea of putting tons of energy into building one single army is not really there. And I'm really just following whatever, like, I want to paint this kind of model right now, or I want to paint this sort of thing. I'm just following that wherever I go. So I've just been bouncing around like a wonderful little hobby butterfly. And Underworlds is the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, that's why I also have 3 separate piles of shame, because it means I can just jump between them whenever I'm in the mood. Actually, correction, 4, because I've also got a few Lumineth left over to do.
Nice.
But going to older fantasy, something interesting that was announced this week was Total War Battles Warhammer, aka Total Warhammer Mobile.
I'm literally hearing about this today for the first time from you. So do give us a bit of an overview about what exactly it entails.
So, to quote the article, Total War Battles Warhammer is a mobile game that takes place on the mysterious Warpstone Island. It falls to you and the legendary lords under your command to conquer the island and thwart the plans of the Skaven, who scheme to establish a new outpost of their under-empire. The only way to bring peace, as is ever the case with Warhammer, is by forming the strongest army and devastating all who stand before you, of course. So there's various armies I can see here. You've got High Elves, you've got Alariel, so the Wood Elves will be there, Dwarves, Skaven. You've got different factions. You can ally with friends, with trading, building, politics, and test it with classic real-time strategy gameplay with hundreds of classic Warhammer units, monsters, war machines, and heroes, and control the action and go. God, I'm sounding like a massive spielathon. But they've also announced for Total Warhammer 2, the Twisted and the Twilight, which gives new legendary lords for the Wood Elves and Skaven, and introduces Zotes to the game.
Not just announced, it dropped 2 days ago, and I've been playing it basically non-stop, because playing as the Twilight Sisters is basically like playing as a gunship, and it's incredible. I've always been a huge fan of the Wood Elves, so the fact that they've got a massive faction rebalance that now makes them fun to play and actually quite viable is the best thing.
Good. But yeah, Total War on mobile. I know it's been a thing before, but, well, Total War game, Warhammer, mobile devices. Why do I worry? It's just I don't know. I don't have high hopes, even though.
Well, no, because it's a mobile game. It's a mobile game, and if anyone is under the illusions that mobile games are going to be good, they're wrong. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine, and if you really like mobile games, I'm sure you'll have a good time. And if not, if you're like me, you just won't play it. So, it's one of those announcements. It's like, oh, okay. Not for me.
Yeah, very true. And they also remind us that Warhammer the Old World is a thing, and we'll be getting more updates on the tabletop return of fantasy next year.
Probably Q4.
Probably. Any updates?
Looking back. You'll get the next update will be next December. It's like you'll get an update next year.
I mean, to be fair, it was January this year that they announced it, or December. It was about a year ago, give or take a month, that they actually announced Warhammer the Old World. And we've only had one update in that time, maybe two. Because we had the map, and then we had the Kislev stuff.
I mean, the first announcement that they made was like, this will be ages. It will be so long until you get this thing. It will be forever. You will have had children. Your children will have had children. You will be dust in your grave before this game isn't. No. Anytime the old world is mentioned, it's like, okay, cool. I'm happy it's in development. I really am, but I don't expect anything. Like, even if this is not going to be a Sisters of Battle-esque kind of development. This is going to be like, you'll get one announcement every year and you're going to like it. And that's it. Because this is not a priority. This is fun, but this is not a priority.
I'm going to come out and say it, that we're not going to see anything substantial about this until after the Horus Heresy series is finished.
Yeah, you know what, you're probably dead right. Like until Forge World gets to Terra.
The last campaign book out or something.
Yeah, I'm entirely in agreement there.
And considering we're on the Framas Crusade now, so what else have we got to go through?
Quite a lot.
We don't have a lot. I mean, technically, but it depends on... I don't know. I get the feeling that they just kind of want to wrap it up at this point.
Because next up we got to have stuff about Beta Garmin next, I would assume, at least.
In terms of the timeline, Thramas takes place before half of Imperium Secundus happens. But in terms of models, they've only really got the Khan and the Emperor left. Yeah,
I don't foresee them... honestly, I don't foresee them pouring too much more into the Horus Heresy. I think we may get the Dark Mechanicum... but after that, it'll be some more Chaosy units for the Traitor Legions, probably a few more Loyalist units to balance it off. Most of them can be picked up by any Legion that they can, but I doubt we're going to get a Shadow Crusade book. If we do, I'll be surprised. I think they're probably, as Rem says, do Beta Garmin, throw in the Dark Mechanicum there, tie it in with Titanicus, maybe build a nice rule system for the two systems, and then after Beta Garmin, just go straight to the Siege. Might get 2 books out of the Siege, but
given they're telling you they don't need
the first book would be the Solar War, then the Siege.
Yeah, but I could see this. I could see the whole Forge World Heresy thing wrapping up within 3-4 books at most. I'm talking books. If they can do a book every 2 years, that'd be great. But I don't think it's got that much longer left into it. That's just my feeling on the matter, though. It doesn't feel like it's being as supported as it once was, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, considering that Crusade was supposed to have Dark Mechanicum in it, and that got cut, and the fact they still charge £84 for a book that's the smallest fucking book of the series so far.
Yeah, I mean, standard prices are for standard
200
prices.
pages?
I mean, and it also dropped in a year that...
It's 200 pages, and and you got one that's 300 pages, that's £70.
And it also dropped in the same year that there's a global pandemic that no doubt threw the last bits of this book's production into disarray.
I wish they just held off, from releasing it until it was ready. If they just wanted to push out for time's sake, and that's why they cut Dark Mechanicum, I'd rather they just push it back like another 6 months just to get that stuff done.
Yeah, but there probably would have been more to it than that. They probably would have budgeted for page count. They probably would have placed the paper orders. Like, there's a whole lot more to simply just delay for the sake of keep retaining the content that goes into a decision like that, especially in the midst of a year that we've just had. I'm not surprised about it. Like, I mean, the book still came through with like quite a few spelling mistakes and quite a few grammatical errors and quite a few sentences that repeated the same words that the previous sentence did. And speaking as someone who works in publishing properly, like, that is the sign of a book that had a bit of a rush to get to print. And that was probably due to everything else that's been dealt with this year. So it's a shame, but it's understandable as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I can imagine you reading through that book and thinking, boy, I hope the editor got fired for this blunder. Kind of thing.
No, it was more just like, oh, this, you had to cut a particular review pass in this particular book, didn't you? You weren't able to give this an extra once over. Probably because the world caught fire in March.
Yeah, it's...
Can anyone else hear the ink spots right about now?
Well, since we're in December, I suppose we may as well so something slightly Christmas-themed. And let's have a look at the rumour engine, or the Advent rumour engine, because there's some interesting things in there. And it's only day... What is it for us now? It's day 5. And we've already seen a giant statue, stone thing that looks like it came straight out of the Cauldron of Blood, if I'm completely honest. Some reptile thing that probably belongs on Necromunda. A very spiky staff that looks like it belongs to the Umbraneth. Some dude with some scrolls for some reason. And a mechanical leg.
I think one of those rumor engines with the very spiky staff has already been solved. It was on the Simbresh Twin Souls as a punch dagger hand weapon.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing, yeah.
Which is a bit odd, but yeah, it was one that it's a bit perplexing. It's like, okay, it's already been solved, but sure. The statue one is something that I'm thinking is probably a Slanesh terrain piece.
They already have one with the Dread Fane.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be a Slaneshi hero like model base.
I mean, I'll hold my hands out and hold my hopes up for a Cauldron of Blood redo to tie in with the new Daughters of Cain battle tome, because, you know, they need to put the Melisai Iron Scale and Marathi Cain in there, but I think I'm just pushing my luck.
Yeah. I mean, Umbraneth is probably... If it had to be anything new, I would imagine Umbraneth would be the likely culprit. That weird little catfish thing, I guarantee you, is part of the Deepkin Underworld's warband. Absolutely guaranteed.
But it's got its eyes.
The
Deepkin,
it does have its eyes.
The Embylos strike every bond beast with the exception of Deepmares blind because they can't control them.
Oh, okay, interesting. All right. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, you might be right, but I know it's a canonical thing in the Deepkin, like with the eels and the sharks and the turtle. You look at all those models; they're all struck blind and blinded, so that they can't see, because it allows the Embaylor's magic that controls them to dominate them, and the mental domination to actually stick. The Deepmares are the only ones that cooperate willingly with the Deepkin as bond beasts.
That is a cool little bit of Deepkin lore that I was not aware of, so thank you.
No bother. But that's why I think it might be Necromunda, because it kind of looks like one of an equivalent, like the Sphinx cat stuff that Necromunda has. Is sort of, that's where I went with it. But if it is Underworlds, I think that would be really cool as well. What does that mechanical leg remind me of? Because it's too slim to be Astartes.
Skitari.
Something Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah, probably.
Or an Inquisitor.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're probably right. And then Scrollboy looks like he came straight off of the Luminarch of Hysh and the Celestial Hurricanum, if I'm completely honest. That's what it makes me think of.
Oh.
It's clearly a model of Oculus.
A what?
It's clearly a model of Oculus.
Oh man, that one little bit with the scrolls under the arm. Like, please let that be the Oculus model that everyone has been asking for. Absolutely everyone. Everyone's been saying this. They want the Oculus model. I wish. Oh, I wish.
Right, I think 2 previews and a lot of rambling later, we finally got the news done, and it only took us an hour and 10 minutes.
Busy couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It has been, yeah, sadly. Oh, well, never
I mean,
mind.
to be fair, we did have 2 previews to get through, so I'm not complaining about it. It's just it's been a lot of news to get through. Right. Oh, I didn't pull up the questions before we started this episode. Quick, kill some time while I get the questions up.
So, did anyone read anything this week?
Sadly not, because as I said, the Dante novel is still stuck. It was out of stock, and so my store didn't get it before the November lockdown in England. So no, sadly, I haven't got anything to read.
I have been reading my way through Peter Fehérvari's The Reverie from Warhammer Horror, and it is
that the one about the
wonderful.
Angels Resplendent? Is that the one with the Angels Resplendent?
Angels Resplendent, yes. It is incredibly weird, incredibly asymmetrical, and I absolutely love it. It's Peter Fehérvari, so if you've read any of his Warhammer fiction, you'll know exactly the kind of thing that you're going to be getting into, where it's like, yes, this is Warhammer. It's absolutely not Warhammer like I recognize it, and that's kind of wonderful. So I fully recommend it. It's excellent. It's very weird and requires you to very much pay attention to it, which is something that, like, let's be real, you don't always have to do with Black Library novels. Sometimes you do not need to maintain your full attention to everything that's being said because you've read so many of them and you know the format. So that's one of the reasons why I love it. It's very, very original.
Have you read through Requiem Infernal?
Yes, I have. Love that book.
Good. Yeah, that was a good one, yeah. Yeah, I managed to get through the new Soul Drinker novella.
Oh yeah, that one definitely caused a lot of stir when it was revealed. I don't obviously know what's in it because I haven't read it, but go on.
I mean, I'll just put this way. At the very end of the book, it ends with, so the Soul Drinkers are made enemy of the Inquisition again. It's like,
I guess we've gone and done it again, boys. The Inquisition doesn't like us. Better go drink some souls.
Interestingly enough, however, they don't actually say from which Primark they're descended from. They just say, oh, it's the teachings of the Primark and our Primark. Nothing about who the bloody hell they are. So, I mean, obviously it's probably going to be, genuine Dornian gene seed in this regard, considering they are a brand new chapter. But anyway, the basic premise is there's a weird cult that's basically taken over a world, and Soul Drinkers have basically been sent to clear up the mess. Now, this cult, you initially think it's a chaos cult because all the members will cut a line down their face to expose the bone and split their lips and tongue, and some of them will have their brains explode, and there's mutants with bone blades and stuff. So you think, chaos cult. But they're actually being manipulated by Craftworld Biotan because they want to get a magical lyre that belonged to an Imperial Saint, which is actually old Eldari technology, which an Inquisitor is also after, and then the Soul Drinkers actually destroy the artifact, and then the Inquisitor gets pissed off, like, oh, you made an enemy of the Inquisition now, bitches.
Wow, okay, that happened fast.
I mean, at the very least, they didn't turn around and say, we're making an enemy of the Inquisition because we're going to shoot the shit out of the Imperial forces, kind of thing. It's easier to justify, hey, the Eldari were after this artifact. If we destroy the artifact, they'll fuck off.
Did the Soul Drinkers know that the Inquisitor was also after the artifact and consciously chose to destroy it anyway? Or was it a case of we have no choice, this is the only way the Eldari don't get it? Or did they find out later?
When they get to the artifact, they learned that the Inquisitor was after it as well. But because I have to say, the Farseer in this story is absurdly powerful. And by absurdly powerful, I mean he was able to split the ground completely in half, to create a massive, miles deep fissure. He survived an orbital lance strike, which vaporized his striking scorpion bodyguard. And it was like, yeah, I'm fine.
Of course.
And he blew up a Soul Drinker's librarian literally by just stabbing him with his staff, and the Soul Drinker librarian just went bang, and he was flying everywhere.
Cool.
It's like, this is the most absurdly powerful.
I like it when Farseers can actually do stuff, as opposed to just being the thing that everyone walks
everyone
over.
would go, but they're not supposed to do that. That's overpowered plot armor. And an Eldari does it like, okay, fine.
Yeah, it's psychic stuff. I don't gotta explain
funny
shit.
that the Soldiering librarian, like, I'll cast lightning, and the lightning's purple. It's like, yes, because you have purple armor. Okay, I think we get it. But interestingly enough, though, they do give us a more or less a hard number in regards to how tall a Primaris Marine is in full armor. Up to 10 feet tall, which is absurd. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's more than 1.5. That's like, I think like a lot of basketball players are like 7 foot or up to 7 foot. That's like 1.5 of them, nearly.
I mean, considering that, didn't one of the Horus Heresy series say that one of the Primarchs was 3 meters tall?
Which is, for context, about 3 meters is... 2 meters is 6 foot, so the Primarch would be 9 foot.
Yeah,
Yikes.
So basically, bigger than a Primarch, potentially.
I mean, Alfarius was known to be very, very short, so that he could hide in the ranks of his...
I'm pretty sure the Alpha Legion were 10 feet fucking tall.
No, Alfarius was
they
short.
were not.
Were big.
Alfarius was short, and the Alpha Legionnaires were usually a bit bigger than normal. Like, Sheed Ranko was about the same size as Alfarius, which made him bigger than... He was probably about as big as a Primaris Marine, and the same as his Primarch, who was shorter than his brothers.
But even so, that the idea of a 10-foot tall Primaris Marine rings a little bit absurd.
It does.
We'll see.
Do they make... Because obviously the Soul Drinkers, the modern Soul Drinkers, have nothing to do with...
Correct.
The old Soul Drinkers, like, do they know their own legacy?
No.
Are they aware of who that there used to be a Soul
They
Drinker?
know
and what happened
that
to them?
a Soul Drinker chapter existed, but they don't basically know what happened to them. Basically, they don't know what fate befell the original Soul Drinkers. They basically just know that they were named basically in honor of their legacy, quote unquote, but they don't basically know anything else about them. I mean, one of the main questions that one soldier keeps asking is like, who are we? Who are the Soul Drinkers, basically? Yeah, that's constantly being asked, and then you got the librarian basically saying, dude, just shut up.
Yeah, you don't want to be
we're not meant to ask questions, we're here to shoot shit.
Yeah, you don't want to be known as that former renegade chapter commanded by a spider librarian. There are weirder fates, but I think the Soul Drinkers certainly had a very short straw in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, suffice to say, I think the chapter's going to experience some orc snipers anytime soon. The chapter's about to be celestial lioned. Is that the correct term? I don't know. It's like when you Pillmanize someone's leg. I don't know. Do people know the term Pillmanize? No?
I do, but...
You do? Okay, good. At least someone does.
But fair enough. What's on the... is there anything you're... Obviously, the Astaroth novel hasn't landed yet, so we can't say if that will be ready by next week, but is there anything on the agenda?
Might try going through one of the other novellas, like maybe the Necromunda one. I'm still trying to get through Avenging Sun, and I'm just finding that one such a slog.
Oh, that's interesting, because I chugged through that lightning fast and really enjoyed reading it, which is interesting, because I remember you saying that you were having a bit of difficulty with it jumping all over the place.
Because there are some parts I do like. The stuff with Messiness, or whatever his name is, the White Consul.
Sidious, yeah.
Sidious, yeah. His stuff I find absolutely interesting, but some of the other stuff, I like the stuff with the Administratum Clerk. Like, in the fact that, like, going, like, sneaking through, these big caves made of paper and stuff like that. It's like, this just drags on.
Certainly, the Space Marines and the Imperial Guard get a lot more shine in the book than the Administratum stuff does. But, it's difficult as a novel like that, because if they just made it a Space Marine smash fest, then it kind of...
Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that there's more than just Space Marine smash stuff in. It's just that some of it just feels really disjointed and it just makes it hard to basically concentrate sometimes. It's like, it just feels like it's meandering at sometimes,
Yeah, it might have been interesting to do, like, say, all the forces that ended up at McCorta Sound in Dawn of Fire, and then that the Administratomy stuff being separate short stories.
That's the thing I'm getting from this book. Like some of this should have just been relegated to either separate books or just a collection of short stories or something. Because it feels like a guy had so many ideas he wants to put in this book, but he had in fact too many, and I think he should maybe trim down maybe like one or two.
Yeah, possibly. It'll be interesting with Gate of Bones that we mentioned earlier to see how they do that. Because again, it's got a lot of different factions on the cover and lots of different forces involved with the Sisters and the Custodes and the Mordians. Whether they'll do that bouncing perspective thing again or not, it'll be interesting. Because they won't have had time for feedback on Dawn of Fire when they wrote and finished Gate of Bones.
Oh, I understand that. I hope for the next book it's more of a case of A plot, B plot, and maybe a C plot, as opposed to B plot, B plot, B plot, B plot, B plot, B plot kind of thing,
Yeah, I get that. I definitely get that. But fair enough.
Because I've gone to the point, like, in regards to like the talking about the plague. This is like chapter 27, and it's like talking about a situation we haven't seen since chapter 2.
Yeah.
When you have to wait like 25 chapters to continue a plot thread, that's a bit silly in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
I mean, five or six chapters, fine. 25.
Yeah, there's paying off long-term booking, and then there's booking so far off in the future that the fans have forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, from a storytelling perspective, I understand the importance of Chekhov's gun. Yeah, I think we all do.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's somewhat essential.
Yeah. But if you're going to introduce Chekhov's gun, for like right at the beginning, maybe have a little bit more of an allusion to it like partway through. Like, so it's not just like, hey, you remember this thing you completely forgot about?
Yeah, agreed. Also, I did the maths, and I realised that the next time this episode's on your channel, we'll be recording it on New Year's Day. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, what new delights is January 1st, 2021 going to bring that you're going to have to talk about? Oh, is it the meteor? Is it the undead zombie mink plague? Like, what are you going to have to be battling?
No, it's just because, Cyberpunk 2022 has still been delayed or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Quite so. Right, shall we do some questions, do you think, folks?
Yes,
considering
please.
This nearly half past, nearly an hour and a half in, yeah, might as well.
Yeah, let's go for it. Okay, this should be an interesting one. If you could spend a day with one of the Primarks, who would it be and what would you do? This commenter would spend the day with Magnus, reading and drinking coffee.
I suppose Magnus would be one of the best ones to, like, spend the day with, because you could just have a really nice conversation over really nice coffee or wine.
Yeah,
like,
just pick each other's brains.
Yeah, like, none of the rest would strike me as any... no one of the rest is going to be any fun to be around. Like, if you're super outdoorsy, maybe you'd want to spend it with the lion.
You say so, but remember, Gilliman's got an arcade machine. He's got those VR. He does. He's got those VR arcade machines that he and Korax were playing in. So there you go.
Yeah, but like out of all of them, Magnus is the only one who would be personable enough for you to be like, okay, let's go and have. I'm presuming, of course, this is all pre-heresy Primarchs.
Yes.
Like, Perder Abbo would be fun if you could get behind the shell, but you're not going to do that within a day. Like, you're not going to be like, get behind all his bitterness and everything like that within the space of the 24 hours that you'll have with him.
Yes, you can. If you just turn around and say to him, I appreciate you and what you do. And he'll start crying.
That would be all it would take.
Well, there's another commenter who commented saying that they'd love to go out and have a soup kitchen with Vulcan. Sort of, doing something charitable, almost.
I could see that. Magnus would be my pick, too.
Yeah, I think it would be for me. Though I could see, like, a certain thrill with Sanguinius or the Khan or the Lion, by extension.
I think if you go and, spend a day with Fulgrim, it'll just be a spa day.
Yeah, but spending the day with Fulgrim would just make you focus on your own inadequacies the entire time, and it wouldn't be any fun.
I mean, isn't that just, role-playing as Fulgrim?
Essentially. But you'd just be constantly being reminded of the fact that you're not as pretty as him, and that would be rough. That would take a toll on anyone's self-esteem.
Yeah. I'm sure there's plenty who would think about, unpicking military strategy with Guilliman, Dawn, Horus, or maybe smithing with Manus.
I mean, Magnus would probably also make you realize you're not nearly as smart as you think you are.
Magnus would look you like an intellectual idiot. But
yeah, but he wouldn't be as dickish about it as Fulgrim would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Okay. With the Horus
Rogue will just tell you his favourite bricks.
Okay.
Sorry, carry on.
Sorry. So this question here, with the Horus Heresy / Siege of Terror coming to a close, what other major rewrites do you think we'll see to the lore? I can't think of a particularly major rewrite, rather new addition in Siege of Terror. I'm sure Rem will tell me in about 3 seconds. But for example, the fan theory that Sanguinius killed Horus or that the Emperor suffered it. What? What? Is there a fan theory that Sang killed Horus and then went Black Rage and then the Emperor had to kill... What? I've never heard that theory before.
No, I've never heard that either.
No. There's not going to be any major rewrites. There will probably be some little perpetual reveals along the way, but as far as any major retcons are going to happen, the authors have taken pains to be like, here's what we've got to hit. So, yeah,
I will say this. I'm going to go on a limb and say that for the scene, where, Horus is about to kill the Emperor, and then, the unnamed person comes in to stand, before the Emperor to take the blow, as it were, I'm going to go on a limb and say that's going to be Garvey or Loken.
I think that Loken is going to have a showdown with Horus, and there's no way it's going to be taking the place of the unnamed guardsman at all.
Or unnamed custodian, or unnamed terminator, depending which version of the story you want to listen to.
Exactly. He's going to get his own thing. He's not just going to be the one person to do that. He will die in confrontation with Horus, or he will survive the whole thing and then just head off on his own out into the galaxy to just die somewhere unmentioned.
By my point of it being, Garvey Loken taking the place of Alanius Pius or Terminator or Custodian, whatever, is that instead of just being one shot, he is going to have the actual fight with Horus there and then, but Horus kills him in the end.
Yeah, I could totally see Horus killing Loken, or maybe having a little bit of a, oh my god, what have I done, and then kill him. But it's not going to be. He's not going to be taking anyone's major place.
Yeah, I think
he'll get his own thing.
I think there's 2 questions left outstanding for me with regards to the siege. One is who jumps in the way of the blow for the Emperor, obviously, as we just discussed. And the other is, did Sanguinius put the chink in Horus's armor or not? And if it was a chink, was it a literal one or is it a metaphorical one that the Emperor then psychically exploited in terms of like trying to turn Horus almost? What do they mean by the chink in the armor, if it is a thing at all?
What you're hitting upon there is how I see, the final battle is not going to just be them clashing swords. It's always low-key been described in the lore as been a battle that takes place in multiple, iterations of reality, basically. So it's going to be not what you expect, and to some people that might seem like a rewrite, but it's not. It's always been that way.
Yeah, they did mention it's in the material realm and in the warp at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because the Vengeful Spirit was a mess.
ADB has said that everyone's got their own version of the siege. It just in the same way that everyone's got their own version of the lore. Everyone's got their own takes on canon. But the authors know what they have to deliver, and they know what's open to be a little bit kind of played around with, which is why Saturnine was how it was, and why Saturnine was amazing. So there's not going to be any major rewrites. They're not going to turn around at the last minute and say it's Horus on the throne, not the Emperor the whole time, or Sanguinius was the one that killed the Emperor. It's not going to be any of that.
Or Rogue Dawn murdered the Emperor in an attempted coup.
No, I mean the only thing that I could see them doing is hint at the possibility that this is a culmination of a series of Horus heresies that have been taking place on alternate timelines, and this is like the last timeline that's collapsed into it. Like
I'm getting more Combat 11 flashbacks.
As I said, that's more Combat 11.
I know, it's had multiple iterations of the Emperor, of doing multiple iterations of the heresy thing that, like, can be read into it, but it's not going to be, if that even crops up, it's not going to be definitive. It'll be hinted at most. But that's the only major, like, revelation, or it's not a rewrite. It's just another aspect of it.
Yeah, because that's what I really liked about Fury and Magnus. No spoilers, but the fact that it completely tallies and is completely fine with the previous lore of what the Thousand Sons did in the Siege. There was enough wiggle room in there for Magnus to go do what he does in that book, and it still works without being a retcon. Now, there's things in there that are arguably retcons, or maybe are revelations you didn't expect, but that's a story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think I know the answer to this one, but I want to double check. Does Angron still have the Butcher's Nails, or did they fall out when he became a Demon Prince?
Still has them.
Yeah, still has them, yeah.
Do they still work?
Yeah. I mean, they are probably mutated with warp tech to beyond anything that they were beforehand. But if you're saying, is there some sort of device in his head that amplifies his anger? Almost certainly. Where does the anger come from? It's probably not just biochemical anymore. It's probably just like, I don't know, Cahorn could have like a total like direct line into Angron's head now, but they're still there. They're still there.
Spacey's Harbingers, like, I am assuming direct control.
Essentially.
Okay, there's a lot of really left field questions this week. So there's one here saying, could the Watchers in the Dark be the shattered remnant of an old one from the War in Heaven?
Too simple an answer. The Watchers for me have always been something else, so I don't think that it would be that they're tied into anything that we know of. The Watchers feel like they're some sort of fundamental universal system sort of thing.
Yeah, considering that what lore we do have in regards to the Watchers, it basically shows that, you know, demons are absolutely pissed terrified of them, whatever the fuck they are. Like, to the point, like, you know, when the Changeling, you know, was on the rock and it saw a Watcher, was like, oh, fuck that, no, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And the
Watcher was just like, hello, I'm Orko.
And yeah, and that's why I don't think they're just the old ones, because demons were not terrified of the old ones. They tried to eat them a lot.
And then the enslavers did eat them.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it feels like the Watchers are probably something a bit more like primordial in a sense.
Yeah. If anything, there's some sort of fundamental universal system of order that is opposed to chaos, but we don't know, and probably never will, because that wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah, agreed.
They're all Sigma. There you go. They're all Sigma.
So this is
basically Hamilcar. When Hamilcar dropkicked Sigma, he shattered them to a million fragments, and they all scattered across warp into 40K and became the Watchers in the Dark. There you go. There's your fanon for you.
Oh, God. Right. This one is kind of Luthor novel spoilers, but I think it's minor enough that I can get away with it. So, if women can undergo the same pseudo-marine process as Luthor and such, which I believe was in the Luthor novel, if I recall correctly.
And in Angels of Caliban, yeah.
And that. Could this be part of the process that gives the Sisters of Battle their armor ports on being like some preserved fragment of the process to upgrade women into the, instead of being pseudo-Astartes, they've lost most of the tech, but they can still use some of it to make the Sisters of Battle.
Power armor does not necessitate the Black Carapace in order to work. It just makes it superlatively more efficient. So the Sisters of Battle do not need any specific augmentations to wear power armor. They just do it, and they're not as great with it in it as Marines are. They're trained.
I think this question's in response to the fact that the new Repentia models have interface nodes in their skin.
Yeah. And there's presumably some sort of like devices that you need to plug into it, but Inquisitors wear power armor. both male and female. It's
I think it's more of a case of the fact that the repented designs having the interface nodes was such a completely different redesign considering what we've seen on the previous Repentia models, for example, which didn't have those ports.
Yeah. No, I understand that, but I get the feeling that may be more of an aesthetic choice than anything. It's 40. Also, it's 40K, and everyone has input plugs all over their entire bodies all the time, even if they don't wear power armor.
Except for that Inquisitor Sabathiel, who doesn't. Who actually wears like a red vest that has the interface nodes on him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. But then again, it's for Terminator armor. Terminator armor was originally used for ship's crews, so...
Okay.
Used to protect against high-speed orbital micro-debris, as the text says, and radiation.
Okay. Just to get a bit metaphysical on this one. In a what-if scenario, if Magnus never turned, or shenanigans happened, but Malgador still died, and the Emperor was on the Golden Throne. So, I don't want to spoil Fury of Magnus here, damn it! I really don't want to spoil Fury of Magnus.
Skip it if it involves
Fury of Magnus. There's a scenario in which this could have happened. That's my point. Oh. In Fury of Magnus, this could have happened. Kind of.
Leave it at that then. It's like, read Fury of Magnus and you beat me.
Yeah, read Fury of Magnus and then re-ask the question.
If this came to pass, how would Magnus react looking back at the damage he's done, what the Emperor's plans were, and how that would change him? Is the question. It's just, I know in my head there's a scenario where this could have happened. That's all. Sorry.
Read Fury of Magnus, there's your answer.
Fair. Why do the Eldari gods not have equivalent to demons?
So I did a video just recently about the Eldari gods and their references in mythology. The Eldari gods are one of those things that we do not quite understand what they were. They are almost certainly warp entities in some way, shape, or form, but exactly what nature they took is unknown because the Eldari don't really talk about them in the same way that we talk about the Chaos Gods.
No. It does say in Liber Celtica / though, that they were originally created as living warp weapons that gain sentience.
That is definitely one of the theories of their origin.
Because
obviously it's not that it's one of those things which is like every like that is one perspective of them, and it's certainly possible and it certainly makes sense.
Especially with the whole War in Heaven thing, definitely saying that they were weapons. So
but the issue with the provenance of the Eldari gods is that were the Eldari created by the Old Ones, as in were they literally taken from animals and made into sentient humanoids, or had they already evolved as humanoids and were then uplifted by the Old Ones very rapidly? Because xenology will refer to them as having a very deliberate hand in their current body, but we don't know whether that was to the extent that was. So was the Eldari pantheon created during the War of Heaven as sentient psychic weapons against the Necrons and the Catan, or did the Eldari pantheon exist beforehand and become more powerful or more weaponized during the War of Heaven? We don't know because the Eldari themselves only talk about this stuff in myth and allegory.
Yeah, and in said myth, the second War in Heaven, the other one, not the Necron one, the other one, it talks about the gods and mortals almost walking on the same plane because Eldanesh fights Cain. If you read it literally, Eldanesh fights Cain. And
this is another aspect of them, that they, the Eldari also refer to their gods as personages, and they seem to have had a much closer relationship with them than the Chaos Gods possibly could have. It seems that the Eldari gods were able to incarnate in the same way that demons would, but not in the same way that the Chaos Gods would. Maybe more akin to the Emperor, we don't know.
Or maybe more akin to Malice?
But when you talk about, Eldari demons, as it were, I mean, technically, aren't avatars of Cain a demonic entity?
Yeah, but we're talking about the difference between demons and gods, and yes, that is a very narrow line, and a blurry one at that.
I mean, considering that a demon is itself created from a portion of a god's own power, so if a god is in fact shattered, it creates demons.
Yeah, and what's that quote from Lorgar? The difference between gods and demons largely depends upon where one is standing at the time.
Yes, precisely. which is just a bit of a more metaphysical comment on the nature of how 40k operates than anything else.
Lorgar was not great, but he had some good quotes.
Yeah.
He did.
Okay, this one I feel like, again, I know the answer, but I'm not sure. Is orc meat treated as edible by 40k humans or not?
I'm pretty sure there's a novel where guardsmen like eat roasted orc because they run out of rations or something.
Yeah,
I mean, you're just like pan frying mushrooms at that point. So maybe with a bit of garlic.
Yeah, you think guardsman rations have anything other than corpse starch, then you've got another thing coming.
Maybe orcs have a natural garlicky flavour. We don't know.
That's getting memed. Right. Do you think we'll see Chaos Dwarves in AOS? Since they've got Forge World models and they did have a book, do you think we'll get Chaos Dwarves in AOS? I mean, we have one in...
Okay, we've two. There's two in Warcry. There's one for the Spire Tyrants and one in the Iron Golems.
Yes, sorry. I forgot about the Iron Golems one.
I got to jump in on this because I literally have a 2,000 point Chaos Dwarf AOS army that I, for some stupid reason, decided to collect and I adore beyond reason. I love the Chaos Dwarves so much. I would love nothing more than for them to appear in AOS. They do exist there. The Legion of Asgore is AOS canon in that not only does it have an army, it's been referenced in the AOS rulebook, and it's been referenced quite recently in the Sons of Behemoth rulebook.
Yeah.
Whether or not they will ever get another army, I don't know. If it is, I doubt it will look anything like the Forge World army that is currently there and that I currently have. They'll probably take it in a very different direction because that's what they do with AOS. They pay like any of the old models that are there and that exist as old concepts from the old world are acknowledged, but they always go in a much different direction with stuff.
Well,
like
unless it's
Lumineth are the perfect example. Like, we're creating something that is evocative of the old High Elves, but is absolutely not the old High Elves in terms of its look, how it plays, what it looks like. In Chaos Dwarves, if they ever came back, we would probably assume that they would get a whole bunch of weird and wacky magical technology artillery pieces, since that's kind of their vibe. The Caradron are a good example of how that would work. I really want it to happen. Will it ever happen? I don't know.
They might just stay Forge World exclusive, like with Deathcore or something, you know?
It's not AOS's thing to go through Forge World, though.
No, it's really not. Like, they have barely done anything other than like Stormcast upgrade heads
and the Mega
for Fantasy with Forge World. Like, Forge World doesn't sell.
They did some big monster models as well, didn't they?
There's a couple of old fantasy models that have carried over, like
no, they did it like a relatively new one as well. Like, not only did that Khorne Blood Dragon, but they did
on that note, actually, the Greater Korgoroth of Khorne, that model is a repurposed sculpt that was going to be a Chaos Dwarf Kadai Destroyer from Warhammer 8th edition. They were rules included in Monstrous Arcanum for the Kadai Destroyer. There was a bit of a mocked up sculpt shown, which had the exact face of that Korgoroth and part of like the body as well. So they clearly just repurposed the sculpt to tie it into the Blades of Khorne faction in AOS. They also released that giant-ass dragon, which is cool.
And that Shartor the Executioner wasn't there as well?
Shartor was released... I don't know. Was he like...
Because it says it's part of the Age of Sigmar character series.
Yes, you're right. I think Shartor was actually released for AOS specifically as a Bull Centaur Executioner. But those are the only few scant fantasy releases that like AOS has had. And I'm sure Shartor would have been released for the Bull Centaurs in Fantasy's Chaos Dwarf army besides that. So it's I don't know. I want it to happen. It's not going to look like the army I have if it does come out. And it definitely won't be going through Forge World because I do not in any way think it's going to be Games Workshop policy to release full armies through Forge World unless the old world goes that route.
Yeah, I think one of the common ways I've always thought of how the old world's going to work is when the heresy is over, it's what's going to give Forge World something to do. So it will still be Forge World's baby in terms of the rules and the models in its entirety. It will be its entirely separate pocket universe. Though, to your point about everything they bring it, when they update stuff for AOS, they always just remix it. They haven't done it I think the big one I'm looking at right now is about Witch Elves, where with Daughters of Cain, they did a full army rebrand, added the Kinnerai, the Melisai, and all that, and then just ported Witch Elves across verbatim. Cities of Sigmar.
Well, what I mean is that like they'll port the kits over, the ones that already exist and can be done, but anything new that they release will be remixed. Like, and Daughters of Cain are a good example. Gloomspite Gits are a great example. Like the Troggots got remixed, the Squig Hoppers got remixed. Admittedly, not in as divergent a way as like the Lumineth did. So,
whereas the Lumineth got a full redo because they retired the Spearmen and Archers, which fine because they were old kids and you could tell. And the new Lumineth are much, 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 much better.
Yeah, as kits, absolutely.
Yeah.
A Chaos Dwarf army in AOS will replace the one that's in Forge World.
Yeah, they might.
It won't just be a plastic release. Yeah, they might retain the name. I hope they do. But they will not. It'll not just be plastic release of Infernal Guard.
No, I'd agree with that. Okay. Who was the last Loyalist Primark to disappear? Since none of them actually, died. I think it's Vulcan. Because he came back and then went again.
Yep. Vulcan.
Yeah, technically it would be Vulcan if he came back and buggered off again, yeah.
Yeah. Aside from Vulcan's War of the Beast return, I think it was probably Dawn, because he made it all the way to at least one Black Crusade.
Yeah. How are we doing for time? We got time for one more?
Yeah, it's 10-2, so I think if I just have a quick sneak through...
Let's do one more.
Yeah. One for cross-universe crowd. Would Gotrek be the one who would say, I'm surrounded by idiots? Or could you think of someone else saying that to the gods of AOS? Because all the AOS gods are super mega idiots.
Gotrek would never be someone who would just try and place himself and his own intelligence above those around him. He'd call someone out for being stupid, but he'd never go, I'm surrounded by idiots. He'd more just be like, I'm done with this, and then just go off and kill some goblins or something.
Yeah, I can imagine if he's in an audience with...
fucks, I'm done.
I can imagine he's in an audience with Malerian, Marathi Kane, Teclis Tyrion, and Sigmar, and he's just there, like Captain Picard face-palming at the whole thing. He's like, oh my god, you elf things and man thing are idiots. Not because I'm any smarter,
probably.
But you're all idiots.
Yeah, he'd probably have some choice words for Grungy and Grimnir as well.
Well, Grimnir's dead.
But is actually, let me rephrase that. He would probably absolutely love how Grimnir went out. Because that was cool.
He doesn't like the fact he's got the Master Rune of Grimnir, as Gitslayer references. He doesn't like having the Master Rune embedded in his own body. But I suppose, if you're going to go...
No, but he would absolutely appreciate a Slayer god going out, killing the father, the mother of all salamander dragons in an event that caused half of the realm of fire to completely reshape itself.
And blew him up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What a way to go.
Very true. As for I'm surrounded by idiots, that would be, as there's a comment underneath that says it, every Skaven ever. Because all Skaven are entirely convinced of their own superior intellect and the idiocy of their underlings.
Part of me wanted to say Hamilcar Bear Eater.
He's ballsy enough to say it, but he wouldn't say it in front of the gods. I think there's a line.
No.
Didn't he dropkick Sigmar?
When Sigmar was disguised as a dwarf and he didn't know it was Sigmar. It turned out to be Sigmar, but he didn't know it was Sigmar. He thought it was just some random dwarf jailer.
Again, would Neferata say that as well?
Neferata would just probably sigh. She wouldn't say anything. She'd just sigh and leave the room.
Yeah, like the interactions in Soul Wars between Neferata, Manfred, and Arkan are interesting. Sort of with Manfred very much demeaning Arkan for being Nagash's bootlicker because he stays by Nagash's side, and then Arkan and Neferata were like, well, Nagash completely controls you too, Manfred. And Neferata is really good, and in the little bits I've read of her from David Annandale, she really does come across as someone who's very much involved in the game and battles of wits, but she's too subtle. She's too sneaky to call someone out for being a straight-up idiot. It's not really her style.
Fair enough. Right, so given that Oculus will have to shoot off shortly, we'll probably have to call it there. So, thank you very much to everyone who joined us for this episode, and thank you very much to Oculus Imperia for joining us this episode.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a delight as always.
Yeah, it's always good to have you back on the show because we can always have some of the most random rambling conversations that are always really interesting. So thank you very much for your time.
Not rambling, tangents.
Difference.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be in such good company.
Yes. So, until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This has been Tactica Imperialis.
And I'm Oculus Imperia, I guess.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.